Yeah. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com Yahoo NBA strategy show. Wednesday, the 6th of April. Only a few days to go before the season wraps up, but we got a 6-gamer today. I'm Dave Lockman. Joining me, Greg Ehrenberg, as he does every Wednesday. And dude, I tell you what, when you look at some of these games, there are at least half of the teams have nothing to play for. So navigating these waters is going to be difficult today, especially with no real significant news coming out yet.
And I mean, the other thing too is like the Oklahoma City Thunder, I guess they have something to play for in terms of they want to lose, but tanking has gone too far when you get to a point where it's like, you know what, we really can't win this game, so we can't play Aaron Wiggins. Like what are we doing?
They still won.
Yeah, and which could not have made me happy. And they were down 20 points at one point.
In the fourth, they were down by 19, and they covered too. They covered the 3.5.
But I mean, how ridiculous is it where we've gotten to a point in the season where it's like, oh, we have to sign Xavier Simpson on a 10-day contract to start point guard just to try to lose games. By the way, he's a really cool highlights fact. I don't know if you saw this. He's this little 6-foot guard. 6 foot is being generous. Yeah. That's what he's listed at now. And he only shoots hook shots.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. He just runs through the lane and shoots hook shots. Like, I think I can get my dad back into the NBA by showing him Xavier Simpson play basketball. Just this little guy just runs through the lane and just launches hook shots.
It's crazy, too, because when you talk about tanking going too far, it's not – I mean, like, the Sam Hinkie era, you would think would have disincentivized teams from tanking as bad as they are because the rewards aren't as big as they were back in the Hinkie days. Like, back then, you looked at that as, oh, my God – this is an epic tank, multi-year tank. We got to stop this. They literally, it was like a mutiny, and they supplanted him with, what was his name? What was his name?
Brian Colangelo.
Yeah. Get a new spin or whatever it was, Mr. Burner. But the crazy thing with OKC, it's not just that like they tanked and ruled guys out. They had 10 active bodies and played 4 guys 43 plus minutes and another guy 39 plus minutes. And then what's his name only played, Lindy Waters only played 4 minutes because he was scoring too much.
Which it's exactly, we get to the point of the season where it's like, hey, we can't play Teo Mallet on our Aaron Wiggins, who weren't even at this. These are guys who were kind of not even in the Thunder's rotation at the start of the year. This is just taken tanking to a whole nother ridiculous level. The other thing too, is I brought this up yesterday. Last season, an NBA record was set with 540 players stepping on the court. That was a new record, and that's due to, different COVID things, injuries, tanking, rest, all that. We're over 600 this year. So this is a thing like last year, it was an egregious amount of players, right? And this year it's just totally gone past it. And yeah, it's to a point now we're looking at this slate and it's like, oh, is Georgios Kalitizakis a good option or not? And then and then this dude is listed as questionable himself because he's sick. So the whole thing's ridiculous.
It's crazy, man. COVID was wild this year too, before like the Omicron phase of COVID during this season got pretty out of, there were some teams that just had no starters for, like Greg Monroe was playing big minutes at one point.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no way this gets topped. I think we've thought this about the NBA before. It's like, there's no way tanking and rest goes to another level in this games. This has to be the people. It has to be. There's no way we get past Aaron Wiggins being too good to play in games at the end of the year.
We've jumped the shark, but here we are. Anyway, we're going to go position by position. Happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. And of course, if you haven't signed up for Yahoo's Fantasy Sports yet, which would be weird because you're here watching a Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports show, use the link in the description or the one that Mike's about to throw in the chat for us. Get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Every single thing on the site, every tool, all you have to do is sign up using that link. Got to use the link. Sign up using the link. Deposit $10 or more. Only have to be $10. They'll give you $10 back in free credit, and then we'll hit you up with the free Awesemo Plus $90 value subscription. Oh, you have to enter a paid contest too, but why would you not do that? All right, let's do it, man. We'll start at point guard. And like I said, we have to kind of tread water here, just with an understanding that you want to watch the deeper dive and live before lock tonight, because I mean, Greg, the Suns, I would not be shocked if the Suns rested a bunch of players. They have nothing to play for. whatsoever. The Clippers might be a bit different because Ty Lue probably still wants to get a little chemistry now with Paul George only having played 3 games, and their final 2 games on Saturday and Sunday are back-to-back sets. But there's just a lot of teams with OKC. Detroit's another one. Who the hell knows what's going to go on there? Phoenix, right now you have to assume they're all going to play. But if we kick it off with the point guard position, how do we approach it at the top?
Yeah. So for one, I would at least for now want to try to focus on the guys that we know are going to play. You talked about the Phoenix situation. It's the tail end of a back-to-back for them. They've got the first seed well locked up in the Western Conference. Actually, I did bet the Clippers when the line first opened, and it's moved a ton now. The Clippers are now favored in this game. It opened with the Suns being favored. Like, we saw a 6-point swing in the spread almost immediately after that line opened. So based on how I'm betting and how I'm reading, the Suns Clippers game.
What did that open at? It
was Suns -3. Now it's Clippers -3.
Okay. I saw it at -1 this morning. I didn't know it opened at -3. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That was because I'm always trying to evaluate where I think teams could potentially be resting. And that was one that seemed, and we don't know for sure. I could just end up being wrong when the news comes out, but it seems fairly logical to me that the Suns will end up resting guys. But that aside, I think for now, at least I'm going to try to talk about the players that I know are going to be good options later. So I think point guard's a pretty good position to pay up for. Luka Doncic at the top end, $55 over on Yahoo. He is the point guard I currently have the most exposure to. He is right now my favorite pay up option on the slate. We have a team in the Mavericks that are playing for something. Seeding matters to them. And I think that is enough for us to expect to get, a full allotment of minutes, a full workload out of Luka Doncic, which is more than can be said about anybody else on the slate. Even if the Suns do start their guys, I don't think there's any guarantees that they play full minutes allotments.
Agreed. I can't, if I had to guess, I don't think Chris Paul plays tonight.
I don't think any of those guys play. I don't think Chris Paul plays. I don't think Devin Booker plays. I don't think Ayton plays. I don't think Bridges plays. I don't think Crowder plays. I think they just go, like an 8-man rotation of just bench guys.
I agree. I just think like if one of them were to sit, the most likely is probably Chris Paul, but I don't know. I'll tell you, I'm pretty fascinated by Emmanuel Quickley right now because I know with Thibodeau, it's hard to say, and it's hard to tell what like Fournier's minutes are going to look like, but Quickley has looked very good. And it's not just the fact that he's played more minutes lately, but as I was looking over some numbers on NBA.com stats, he's averaging 85 touches over his last 2 games, which is, and if you look at just like time of possession, all this stuff, he's clearly in a more of a playmaking role than he has been in the past. But he's somebody that can do a bit of everything. I don't know how many minutes he plays today, but if he I think there's a ceiling for sure with Quickley. He's $21. He's single-digit ownership against a top Nets team that's playing at a top 10 pace over the last month and a half. This is a spot that does interest me if he's really going to be sub 10% on.
I love Quickley in general, not just for DFS today, but I think he's a pretty good young player. And I don't really understand how he wasn't a bigger part of the Knicks rotation this year. I thought that was a mistake by Tom Thibodeau because Quickley had a great rookie season also. To your point about him playing extended minutes, he played 34 minutes last game, which I believe is the most he's played the entire season. No, he had a couple games earlier in the year where there were blowouts and starts and whatnot, but 34 minutes is the most he played in a very long time. He had a triple-double last game. The usage has been there for him. He's never afraid to shoot when he's on the court. So you look at his usage over the last couple of weeks. He only has 1 game with a usage rate below 23%. It was at 26.1% last game. He's going to be on the court. He's going to shoot. He's able to fill up the stat sheet in other areas as well. He's not all that expensive at $21. The other point you mentioned too, he isn't popular. So I agree. He's a contrarian option I like quite a bit.
Yeah. And if you take Rose, Walker, and Randall off the floor this year, he's played like 700 minutes without him, 26% usage, 32% assist rate, 1.1 fantasy points per minute. Those are good numbers. What else do you think stands out at point guard? Like Alec, here's the question I have for you. Should Alec Burks be 33% when Quickley's 8%?
No, because I have Quickley projected higher than Burks. So I think that's a pretty easy pivot to make. And a couple of things that, number one, I just think Quickley's a better play. And also there's leverage there. If Quickley plays really well, it could come at some minutes expense for Alec Burks. It could come at usage expense for Alec Burks. That's not to say that Burks isn't a good option at $20. But I think he's a little bit too popular, and I think Quickley's a little bit under-owned. So I put those two things together, and I think that's an easy pivot to make. Another guy in that price range that I think could make sense is Reggie Jackson at $23. We saw for a little while the Clippers said, hey, we're going to try to limit the minutes of our starters. Well, that's apparently off the table now because they were trying to cap Reggie Jackson at 32 minutes. But the last 3 games, he's played 37 minutes and he's played 37, 40, and 33 minutes. Then you also consider that he could be playing against the Suns team that might be resting a lot of guys. So that's somebody else who I really like at the position.
Apparently that was misinterpreted. And like Ty Lue was just resting them until Paul George came back. But I think the wires got crossed there as far as communication went. So I don't know.
It is possible. I mean, that's a weird thing though, is, hey, we're going to have a minutes restriction for 3 games and Paul George is going to come back and we're going to take it off. It's a weird policy.
It's very weird. All right, let's talk about shooting guard. So at the shooting guard position, you've got Jaylen Brown, $32, highest owned by a wide margin right now, according to our Awesemo ownership projections. Player rankings are free today too. Same with PGA golfer projections, got the Masters coming up, NHL player projections, and be sure to stick around after Live Before Lock tonight because you got PGA Live Before Lock with Ben, Jason Ruslan, and Alex Baker joining them for a 3-man booth. So yeah, all that free content today, plus Live Before Lock leading up to the Masters. At the top of the position, just from an ownership standpoint, who do you think makes the most sense?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at the shooting guard, I mean, by far the most popular play here is Jaylen Brown, and a matchup against the Chicago Bulls, I don't really mind it. I think he's a little bit too popular. I'm not getting to quite as much of him as what the field is at 32%. But then you go down and you look at the next guys. Paul George, I think that he's somebody that makes sense, especially if the Suns are going to be resting guys. Paul George has played really well, and there's been no minutes concerns for him. I'm not sure we get a full allotment of minutes out of Donovan Mitchell because I know we try not to predict blowouts, but how do you not expect the Utah Jazz to smash whatever the hell the Oklahoma City Thunder throw out there today?
And Utah needs this win, by the way.
Yeah, so the spread for that game is 17 points right now, pretty wide. But I also think there's a good chance that the Utah Jazz starters get up by like 30 points. We don't see any of them play in the fourth quarter. So it's something where I look at Donovan Mitchell. I don't do this often, but I'm going to have to reduce the minutes that I project him for.
I'm wrong. Utah doesn't need this. I forgot that Minnesota dropped that game yesterday. So Utah has clinched the playoffs. They could finish 5th or 6th. So
yeah, and I think potentially 4th as well.
Yeah, they're 2 games back of Dallas. Dallas has Detroit today. So technically, I would assume you're right. Yeah, if they hold the tiebreaker over Dallas.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's not likely, but either way, they're going to try to win today.
Right.
And it would, as bad as Utah has been lately, and they've had some monumental collapses, I cannot imagine that they shit the bed in this game against the Thunder because the Thunder have no intention of winning games.
They do not want to win. There's no way. You would think this game gets out of control early, but like you said, it's difficult and usually ill-advised to predict blowouts, but I'm not going against you on this one at all. I will say that when you just look at the position and you kind of broke it down, there's nothing that stands out as great. I mean, Zach LaVine's not overpriced, but this is a shit matchup. You still have DeRozan and Vooch, everybody looking healthy. LaVine's probable on the second leg of a back-to-back after sitting out yesterday. Booker's $41 against the Clippers in a game that you and I both believe you could see several players, including him, sit or at least play limited minutes. Just going down the list, it is not that appealing of a position, which honestly leads me to look at, I know you mentioned it, but leads me to look at $40, but 16% owned Paul George, because his minutes have been odd since returning, but only because 31 and 32, but then 29, he was on pace to play like 35, 36 minutes in that game if it didn't blow out. I think you probably in a close game get him to around that, back to his season averages today.
Yeah, so Paul George is my preferred spend up option right now, just relative to everything, price, ownership, and all that. It's not like he's crazy popular, 16%. So there's a few guys that are grouped together. You got Jaylen Brown is on a tier of his own in terms of ownership at the position. Then you've got Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, Paul George, and Jalen Brunson are all really close. And of that group, I do think Paul George is the best option.
Did you mention Ish Smith yet? Just curious, a point guard, given that he's minimum salary, like, is there any way for us to actually figure out what Wes Unseld's going to do with this point guard rotation, or is it just more blowout hot hand related?
The minutes have been pretty consistent over the last 3 games for Ish Smith. He's played 30, 28, and 30 minutes. So with that in mind, I think it's reasonable to expect 28 minutes for him, and relative to his price, makes him a good option today on Yahoo. I think he is a pretty good value play. We didn't really talk about him much at the point guard position, and there are other point guards I prefer to him. But yeah, I think $10 is more than a reasonable salary, and I don't see much reason to project him for, way less minutes than what he's gotten in the last 3.
Have you seen the insane assist totals that him and Satoransky are racking up?
Yeah, makes no sense.
You've seen this, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm making the betting video for Odd Shopper channel right now, and there's no way I can go over 6.5 assists for Satoransky in 20 minutes right now. Like, he's converting 80% of his potential assists into actual assists. It's nuts.
And it's not like he's playing with good players either. They just happen to be making the shot. It's not, there's no sort of magic. It's not like he's putting the ball in the perfect place. It's total just luck and variance. Not 100%, but a lot of it is.
Yeah, it's nuts. I wasn't sure if you'd seen that, because I'm looking at this recently and seeing the prop. Because I'm hitting over 3.5 assists on Satoransky last week, and now just crushing. But anyway, let's keep it moving here. We got small forward, power forward, and center to go. RJ Barrett, very reasonable price point. Tatum's going up against Chicago. Bulls playing their second of a back-to-back. Their situation's kind of weird too, Greg, because they clinched the playoff spot, so they don't have to play in a play-in game. There's no shot of that, because the Cavs lost to the Magic without just
everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr. But they could grab the 5th seed. I really don't know how much that matters. That's the only room they have. That's the only mobility they have here. But what do you make of small forward?
Yeah, so small forward, there are some teams that I like to focus on, once again, that have something to play for. One of them being the Atlanta Hawks. So we've got a pretty reasonable price tag here on DeAndre Hunter. He is only $13. We also have Danilo Gallinari listed as questionable. And Hunter's only projected for 12% ownership. You look at the last handful of games for DeAndre Hunter, 32 fantasy points, 30. He had one game against the Cavs. It was a blowout where he shit the bed, played limited minutes, only scored 8. But you take that out of the equation, 26, 27 fantasy points the game before. And then just also, like I said before, to reiterate, Danilo Gallinari is questionable to play. So we have another situation where DeAndre Hunter, I think, should play extended minutes in this spot. The Hawks need to win this game because they're trying to avoid having to play back-to-back play-in games, have to win 2 to get in. So I think we're looking at bigger minutes from DeAndre Hunter. Again, positive matchup against the Washington Wizards, and the field isn't really there in a big way.
I'm with you on that 100%, but I have to ask you, so Jalen Horde, this guy has played 3 games, okay? He has 20-plus rebounds in 2 of them.
Yep.
Now, granted, both of those were starts. Both of those he played 40-plus minutes. The big question is today, does Daignault, I don't know why do they not pronounce it the way that they would pronounce it in France? Like Daignault.
I don't know. Has there ever been a wider collection of players from different areas of the world than this roster OKC has put together?
I don't know.
I mean, you just like right away, you just look at the players who are going to be playing extended minutes, or at least some of them potentially at the top. And like Pokashevsky, Isaiah Roby, Teo Maledon, Olivier Sarr, Vit Krejci, they're getting guys from all over the place here.
And then their coach, Daignault.
Yeah. As for OKC, though, I need to see the starting lineup. Like, has Jalen Horde played too well? Are they going to be like, no, we can't have this guy pulling down all these rebounds. He's hurting our chances for ping pong balls.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know, but
imagine resting somebody on a 10-day contract for tanking.
Yeah, like resting Jalen Horde and playing one of your normal guys over him because Jalen Horde's just been too good. But the difference is on DraftKings, he's $5K. On Yahoo, he's still $10. So
yeah,
even if you see him go back to like a somewhat routine rotation, a somewhat standard rotation, I don't think they will. Like if it blows out, Horde probably gets those minutes. It's so tough to say because you really do want big minutes from him. But on the other hand, he's as cheap as it possibly gets.
He has to start. Anybody that doesn't start for OKC, I brought this up when I was doing live before lock last night with Gundacker. When we saw guys like Wiggins and Pokashevsky not start for OKC, I'd said like, all right, time to put the eject button, take these guys out of your player pool. I don't know that it's the most likely scenario, but I'd said that there's a pretty good chance these guys play 0 minutes. And I think the same thing goes for any player that's not in the OKC starting lineup. There is no rhyme or reason to the rotations or who this team is going to play. If Horde starts, excellent value option, probably plays 40-ish minutes in a start. If he comes off the bench, I legitimately don't know if he steps on the court at all. So as long as he starts, great play.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if he starts, he's the best value play on the slate. I think you can make a pretty good argument for that.
Yeah, no disagreement here.
So you have Jalen Horde, you have Hunter, you talked about at $13. You've got Tatum, Barrett. Are there any low owned options right now that are even somewhat viable?
I mean, let's see. What was the ownership on Marcus Morris? So Marcus Morris is projected for 7% ownership. And another guy in Morris, who it doesn't look like we have to be concerned about the minutes restriction anymore. Last 3 games, 27 minutes, 39 minutes, and 27 minutes. Last game, the 27-minute game, that game wasn't especially competitive. So it looks like we could be getting over 30 minutes of Marcus Morris in competitive games. And once again, against that Phoenix Suns team that could be resting players. So a fairly unknown Marcus Morris at a reduced price point and back-to-back games where he scored well over 30 fantasy points. So it looks like he's resumed his normal role. I think that's somebody who's getting slept on at the position.
Okay. Yeah. If those minutes are there, $15 makes a whole lot of sense, especially against a potentially depleted Suns team. At power forward, Obi Toppin, man, $17. It's hard to look away from that, just given Julius Randle's absence and Toppin's play on top of the minutes and a matchup against a fast-paced Nets team on the second of a back-to-back.
Yeah, I think all of the chalk plays here make sense. $17 for Obi Toppin, great option. Rui Hachimura, $10 is actually my favorite. I know that right now we have Toppin projected for slightly more ownership. It's the slightest amount, just 45% versus 43%. I do get to more of Hachimura just because I have them projected somewhat similarly, but Hachimura is $7 less expensive. So Rui, Toppin, I think both of them really good chalk plays. Don't have an issue with the ownership there. And same goes for Al Horford, assuming that he's in the lineup and starting. He also has a reduced price point at $21. We could see him play extended minutes, which should be the case going forward with Robert Williams injured. So 3 chalk plays at the position, and all 3 of them are warranted to me: Toppin, Hachimura, and Horford.
I like Horford. Look, all the games that not every one of them, but if you look at just his game logs of games that he started with Robert Williams inactive, Horford's been very good.
Yeah.
Very good in those games, and even recently, right? 10, 8, and 6, just like points, 17, 10, and 6, 6, 15, and 4. He kind of produces everywhere. 19, 7, and 7. I'm just going down the list of his most recent starts with Robert Williams off the floor. These are all pretty productive games. And I think the biggest thing with Horford is pretty simple. Like, is this a guy that's going to see consistent playing time if the game stays competitive? And he is, right? Like, he even played 30 minutes in a 42-point win last game. My question for you is kind of unrelated, kind of unrelated to DFS, but in a sense, maybe the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Sixers are all knotted up at 49 and 30. 2 seed is almost certainly playing the Brooklyn Nets, right? So no, you don't think so?
Not necessarily, because I mean the Nets as of right now are are they at 8 now? So the Nets are at the 8, but they're tied. They have the same record as the Atlanta Hawks. Like, it's not crazy to think the Nets end up playing in the 9-10 game and then they don't have well, no, because if they play in the 9-10 game, then the best they could be is the 8.
Right? No, I get that. I just think they're gonna, fire it up here, but we'll see. They got the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Pacers to close out the season. You're right. It's entirely possible that they don't, but this is one of those years where the 4 seed in the East actually doesn't look all that bad, is what I'm saying.
I think I agree with you, just because of the chance you might have to play the Nets as the 1 or 2 seed. I would much rather be the 3 or 4 seed, especially when you consider the teams below that, the Toronto Raptors, the Chicago Bulls. I guess the one thing that does come into play is, I don't know if you've read these stories, but apparently the Celtics have multiple core rotation players that aren't vaccinated that wouldn't be allowed to play in Toronto. So that would also be that could also be problematic for them.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah. So that's we don't know what players they are. I'm just guessing. I think Jaylen Brown is one of them, and I think Al Horford might be the other one. Because the last time neither Brown or Horford played the last time they went to Toronto, and they listed Horford out for personal reasons. And then also just some of the comment, and there's no way to know this. I was just kind of speculating when I was talking with one of my friends. We're trying to figure out who the players were. But Horford was ruled out because of personal reasons the last time they played in Toronto. And Jaylen Brown, just based on some of the comments he made about Kyrie earlier in the year, I'm kind of reading the tea leaves and thinking that he would probably be in that same boat if I had to guess who the two players are.
Interesting.
So I don't know if the Celtics want to be the 3 seed either and have to play the Toronto Raptors without those guys potentially,
right.
whoever it is.
Raptors could be the 5 too.
Yeah. So it's hard to say any team is going to intentionally try to lose games when we don't know what the alternatives are.
Yeah, but if you're the Sixers, you like that 4 right now.
Yeah,
you got to feel okay about that.
Definitely. I think the Sixers would probably prefer to be where they are right now as the 4 seed than as the 2 seed.
Yeah. Also, if you're the Sixers, I would much rather face the Bulls than the Raptors. Much rather. The Raptors just give that team trouble. The Bulls are one of those teams that I'm not surprised at all that they've slid, and Lonzo Ball's not coming back either. So
yeah, that's true as well.
I mean, if Lonzo Ball was come back just defensively alone, they looked very good on the defensive side earlier in the season.
Doesn't matter now.
What's up?
Doesn't matter now. Not coming back.
It means nothing. I one more question at power forward.
Yeah.
So you have Luka Doncic pulling 28%. He's $55 against Detroit. Obviously a good spot. Very slow paced game, but Kevin Durant is getting 3% right now at power forward at essentially the same price. Obviously due to the fact that he has to play alongside Kyrie Irving and he's the same price. But I mean, 3% on Kevin Durant, a guy that in 2 of his last 4 games has ripped off 70+ fantasy points.
Yeah, so this game isn't nearly as high leverage as some of those other games. He had big nights. So the reason, twofold, some of the reasons he had some big games. Against the Bucks, he played 45 minutes. Against the Hawks, he played 42. Those were pivotal games. Although that other game, like you mentioned, did come against the same Detroit Pistons team where he put up, 71.7 Yahoo fantasy points. Yeah. He's not my favorite pay up option on the slate, but in the build I have right now, I have around 10% of them. So, that is 3x the field.
Why isn't this a pivotal game?
Just because it's a game against the Pistons who are trying. I mean, no, it's not a game against the Pistons. I had the
Luka has the Pistons.
It's a game. No, I mean, I guess we could consider it a pivotal game against the Knicks. They do need to win games just for the season. I'm kind of surprised the spread isn't wider.
I am too. But dude, if they lose this game and the Hawks win, the Hawks are 10.5-point favorites. That means the Hawks overtake them in the East for that 8 spot. And then the Nets got to win 2 games to get into the playoffs and the play-in games. Yeah.
So I'll retract a little bit. Yeah. I think Durant isn't going to go out and play 45 minutes or anything like that again, but sure. I think it's reasonable to expect high 30s minutes.
All right, let's wrap it up with the center position. Before we do, though, I was going to do just like an Awesemo plus NBA read, but I figure even though it's not on here, the Awesemo MVP program, MVP text program. Mike, do you have that graphic to put on the screen? Thanks. If you text MVP to this number, put it in chat too. It's in the link in the description as well. I'm not reading the number, but it's right there with that goofy looking freak up on the screen. If you text it, we're not going to spam you. I made sure that I asked specifically. I was like, is this spam? And we're not spamming our people, right? They said, no, absolutely not. Only relevant stuff like exclusive discounts, beta testing new tools. I don't know who wouldn't want to do that. You're automatically entered to win a free month of Awesemo plus Platinum. And if you join the Awesemo MVP text program, you can get 50% off. You will get, if you decide to sign up, 50% off your first week of Awesemo plus Platinum. That's every sport on the site. You have the Masters coming up, baseball opening days tomorrow, basketball, UFC, NASCAR, esports, everything on the site, 50% off. So text MVP to that number if you want to get involved in beta testing and everything else that we've got, including half off an Awesemo plus weekly pass. All right, let's wrap this up, Greg. We're up against it, but I think we could probably work through this pretty easily. Is there any real priority play at center?
Yeah, for me, it is Kristaps Porzingis. I know that the Wizards don't really have anything to play for at this point of the season, but in competitive games, Porzingis is still playing around 30 minutes. And with the amount of guys that are out on this team, Kyle Kuzma, who's likely not going to play the rest of the season, there is so much usage available to Kristaps Porzingis. We've seen games where he's gone over 40% usage rate in a game where he is not as involved in the offense. Like last game, that's still a 25.8% usage rate. So over the last handful of games, 25.8, 34.5, 31, 37.2, 27.8, 43.7. Porzingis is going to shoot when he's on the court. He's scoring over 40 fantasy points more often than he's scoring under 40 fantasy points when he's been with Washington. So to me, he is the highest priority at the center position. I would like Rudy Gobert a lot just relative to his price, but once again, I kind of have to discount his minutes a little bit just because of how wide that spread is against OKC, who has no intention of trying to win games.
At all. Randy Hulse, welcome to Team Awesemo, man. Nice to see that. I missed that earlier. My chat just froze up, it looked like. But all right, let's wrap it up with this. First off, if the answer is no, works for me. Any value or any low-owned players at center? And second off, who would you say your favorite contrarian option is today? Like I got to go with our boy Emmanuel quickly if he stays at 8%. But take it away, close us out.
All right, so low-owned center option. I think I'll go with Hartenstein here. He's $17. We've seen him play bigger minutes as of late. He crushes on a points per minute basis. Last two games, 27 and 23 minutes. It's funny, even when they came out and they said, hey, we're going to limit Zubac's minutes. It's like, well, Hartenstein's already been playing more than him and playing better. So Hartenstein is somebody who I've been on as a contrarian play, still only $17 on Yahoo. He is projected for 6% ownership. So that's my favorite center play as a contrarian option. Overall on the slate, as far as contrarian options go, I think Quickly makes a whole lot of sense. I don't want to just give out the same one as you. So I'll scroll through and try to find somebody else. I'll be DeAndre Hunter for me. I liked him at small forward. Small forward is one of the more difficult positions to fill today on Yahoo. He's projected for 12% ownership. My current build, I'm well over that number, particularly if Danilo Gallinari gets rolled out. I literally like getting to Hunter.
All right. And last thing, a bit of an obscure question here, but it goes back to what you were talking about with the Thunder starting lineup. If the Thunder start the same lineup as they did yesterday, does Oliver Sarr make sense to you at $12, given that he played 39 minutes off the bench?
I still can't. I can't trust it if he comes off the bench. Okay. I understand what you're saying in terms of, do we just expect the same rotations, to an extent, but at the same time too, Lindy Waters came off the bench and played 4 minutes. Yep. Who's to say Lindy Waters can't end up playing 30 minutes? And that's 20 less minutes that Olivier Sarr plays, for instance. Yeah. So I don't want to play anybody who comes off the bench for OKC. Starters only for me.
Makes sense to me. Follow Greg at G. Ehrenberg, DFS, Mia Laffy _D. Shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing this one. And good luck tonight, guys. Remember, NBA Deeper Dive, NBA Live Before Lock, PGA Live Before Lock, all of that coming up throughout the day right here on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Peace.